One letter, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur wrote that it's not proper to write the holy name at the top of the letter, because by doing so you become the Harinam Upadeshta. In other words, you're telling me to chant Hari, which is a nice idea, but it's also a bit of Maryada Vyatakrama, because I should tell you. Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So as you can see, Maharaj started with education, right guidance. Maharaj is leading many communities.
No, not many. Some. Let's be realistic.
So, Maharaj is really good.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I was originally scheduled to speak at this Bliss Festival on the topic Women, Masters and Mothers. That got cancelled, and I've been reassigned to speak on promoting Daiva Varnasrama. Can we have these lights off, please? We can have some alternative lighting arrangement. Do you need that for this? You're going to blind me with these halogen lamps? Alternative ka matlab dusri. So, anyway. So, before we can... Sides? From the side? Can you do? Not directly in the eyes. Before we can promote Daiva Varnashram, first of all, we ourselves should understand what it is. What is Varnashram? Is it self-sufficiency? This bliss is an acronym, the Bhaktivedanta Leadership Initiative for Self-Sufficiency. Learning initiative. All right. But Varnashram encompasses a lot more than self-sufficiency. The GBC has some committee, what is it, about Vaishnav communities? Self-sufficient Vaishnava communities. That's also not Varnashram. Varnashram specifically means the scientific division of human society into 4 Varnas, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, and 4 ashrams, namely Brahmacharya, Garhastya, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. And within that social arrangement, communities, self-sufficiency are included, and Vaishnavism directly has nothing to do with any of these things, but because Vaishnavas in this world also have to have some kind of social system, at least in Kali Yuga. In Satya Yuga it wasn't required, because everyone was a Paramahamsa. But in other yugas, this social system is required. So Varnasrama it's not in and of itself about making farms, because there are millions of farms all over the world which have got nothing to do with Vaishnavism or Varnashram. And Varnashram is not simply about having self-sufficient farms, because there are plenty of people who live on self-sufficient farms or who are trying to establish such communities who have no idea of or interest in Vaishnavism. And if we say Vaishnav self-sufficient communities, we're talking about economic self-sufficiency here. Well, that also, it's feasible to set up such communities without Varnashram. So, Varnashram, what is it first of all? It's this division of society. It's extrinsic to Krishna consciousness, but within this world, it is promoted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as His system by which people can live and be elevated to the platform of Krishna consciousness, and by which devotees can also live according to Varnashram norms for the sake of teaching others. Daiva Varnashram is distinguished from the Asura Varnashram. Varnashram, the system which was going on in India, became polluted and corrupted, and the whole idea of dharma, which operates within the social system, or dharma is to be enacted within the social system known as Varnashram dharma. The idea is to give up selfishness, which is the characteristic of every conditioned soul. But when the aim of becoming selfless and then becoming Krishna conscious is lost, then the exploitive spirit enters, and the principles are perverted, and one's position became fixed. This idea of caste became with the idea that it's fixed by birth, and that the upper castes are meant for dominating and exploiting the lower castes and hating them. So that is the Asura Varnashram. And Daiva Varnashram means the divine alternative to that. Srila Prabhupada is uniquely powerful Acharya sent by Krishna from the spiritual world to fulfill Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prophecy, to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Srila Prabhupada said, our movement will go down in history for having saved mankind in its darkest hour. The darkest hour means the modern society, what modern society has produced. The society based on lust, anger and greed, the three great gates leading to hell, factory. Srila Prabhupada also said factory is another name for hell. The modern society that is anything but self-sufficient. You produce food in one place, export it to another place. People are engaged in all kinds of activities which psychologically and physically deteriorate their whole condition. Increasingly, the whole world's economy is dominated by multinational corporations, which makes everyone dependent on them. Srila Prabhupada wrote in one of his first purports that over-dependence on others saps human vitality. So Srila Prabhupada came from the spiritual world to bring about a spiritual revolution, which means a change of consciousness. The present society in which we all live, and which is very much has its influence right here, even in Vrindavan, the spiritual world present within the material world. But from external perspective, Vrindavan is interfacing with the material world, so that people living in Vrindavan, growing up in Vrindavan, many of them don't want to stay in Vrindavan. They want to go to Delhi and get a good job, because that's the message coming through from the broader society. So Srila Prabhupada's spiritual revolution necessarily means that there must be a social revolution also, because if people are to live with the aim of life of being Krishna conscious, that means their aim of life is not going to be just getting money and getting gadgets and paying a crore for a flat on the 20th story of a building which will collapse in the next earthquake. It's a different aim of life. The present society is based on the aim of life. It's not even well defined, but it's basically eat, sleep, drink, be merry and enjoy, for tomorrow we shall all be dead. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy. No real philosophical outlook at all. And Srila Prabhupada recommended simple living and high thinking. The idea of simple living is to maximize our time and opportunity for hearing and chanting about Krishna and living in the association of devotees, so that we can be Krishna conscious. Because Krishna consciousness means to hear and chant about and serve Krishna in the association of devotees, which is not very possible in modern society, where people have to work bifale shevino kripona durajana chappala shukalaba lagire. People have to work hard for merciless rascal masters. And why are they working so hard? Just for a little bit of insignificant and temporary sensual happiness. So Srila Prabhupada's social revolution, which is a necessary follow-up to his spiritual revolution, it means actually changing the whole way of people's thinking. Why are we living? What are we living for? And then changing the whole way of people's way of life. It's not about making some, what do they call that, eco-villages, where you have alternative sources of power. It's not about that. What Prabhupada's alternative source of power is, what's our alternative source of electricity? No electricity. That's all. And you don't have to worry about it, because as soon as you have electricity, then you have TVs and you have electric lights, so you stay up till 11 o'clock at night, and then you have to work hard you have to produce more. If you're doing agriculture, then you have to produce more than you actually need, so you can buy all these useless things. But then then you have to have chemical fertilizers and pesticides to produce more. And you may be living on the land, but you're in the same consciousness of the Ugra Karma city, so you can produce all these TVs and computers and gadgets and different things. Srila Prabhupada's social revolution was, first of all, you don't need all these things. You don't need electricity. You don't need money. How about that? Sometimes we hear about some project where we grow food and then it's organic and we sell it and make a good profit and we help the local villages. It's all bogus. It's not what Prabhupada wanted us to do, because it entangles us in the money-driven society. Our aim is to show something completely different. People think that we are dependent on money. Unless you get money, you can't live, because without money you can't buy food. Well, folks, we got news for you. Food comes by the mercy of Krishna from Mother Earth and from Mother Cow. So money is an artificial imposition in between. People think you have to earn money. You have to get a degree. You have to go to university and get a degree so you can wag your tail at the door like a dog begging for a job so you can get some money. So you have to study for 25 years, build up a huge bill for your education debts. Then you can go to work and pay off your debts and buy some food. But without doing all that, if you live on the land and put little seeds in the land and then there's some rain and then the food comes up and you don't need a huge education debt and you don't have any debts, you don't need money because by Krishna's mercy, food is produced much more simply than having a very complex education and making very complex social plans for you produce one item here and you send it there and then you produce another item there and you send it here. It's not necessary. Live very simply as possible. Human necessities are food, clothing and shelter. Those are and Prabhupada in one instance he said, and also sex. It's also a human necessity. So the sex you don't get from the land, but you can have that. All these things, food, clothing and shelter come from the land. All of those things can be produced locally in most places, except even in condemned places like the deserts or the Arctic extremes. Still some people are living there, but that's not a very, that's for people born in impious circumstances. Here in India, more and more there are droughts, but otherwise most of the country is good soil. A lot of you can live with. So you can live very simply. We don't need to live in a very complex life. And without working hard all year round and having lots of stress management. What's stress management? Well, leave the city. Go and live on the land. Then you don't have to, then there won't be stress management. Then you don't have to have courses on stress management and personality development and 1-minute manager and 59-second employee. You don't need all this. Then we can, simple living and high thinking. High thinking, simple living means simplify as much as possible. We don't need so. You may say, then why am I talking in this microphone? They just get rid of that altogether. We don't need. Well, there's also the example of you have the handle of the axe. Sorry, you have the blade of the axe, and the handle is made from wood. So you put them together, and with the wood, and you put the handle of the axe, and you use that to cut the tree. So we don't need all these things, but we're using all these things to propagate the message that you don't need all these things. And we're also setting up communities to show that we don't need these things. So that is self-sufficiency doesn't mean that we can live on farms and produce enough stuff that we can, from growing food, we can make enough money to get all our needs. We can grow organic food and then sell it at a high price, and then we can buy all the things we need. But self-sufficiency means whatever we need, we produce right there. And if we don't produce it there, then we probably don't need it. There may be a few exceptions. For instance, I just spoke about an axe. That is, for that you may have to, well, in most places that won't be produced locally. There are some things which won't be produced locally, so some extra production is needed also. So a few things, but just like an axe, it's not that you're going to buy one every 2 weeks or even every year. Probably one axe head can last for a whole generation, and the handle may need to be changed from time to time. So self-sufficiency, living as simply as possible and having high thinking. That means So that Krishna in the center, morning and evening, minimally, the members of such communities should come together and chant the holy names and study Shastra, study Srila Prabhupada's books. One devotee who had gone to one of our communities, he'd been there for almost a year at the time, he's still there. He said to me that, well, in many ways it's difficult here, it's difficult, because there's no electricity, means there's no fans, and water, you have to collect it. So in many ways it's difficult. I said, yeah, it's true, it's difficult in some ways, but the plus point is that when you were living in the city, as a householder, you came to the temple once a week, and then you were working hard all day, and you maybe chanted your rounds. You didn't have any sadhana, hardly at all, or association with devotees, only just once a week. Whereas here, you're living here, and morning and evening, you have hours and hours every day. You have more in one day of Krishna, you have more sadhana association with devotees in one day than you used to get in a whole week. And all day you're living with devotees, you're working with devotees, you don't have to pretend to be something else. You're wearing tilak, you're dressed in Vaishnava, traditional Vaishnava clothing. I said, oh yeah, that's right, that's why I came here. I forgot, thank you for... So, that's the advantage. You can be Krishna conscious. And we can show to people how we can live depending on the land, the cows, and Krishna. So this, for our own devotees, how they can be Krishna conscious. It's very difficult to be Krishna conscious if you have so much pressure of earning money. You have to work for and living among materialistic people where talk of Krishna is not allowed, where people just focused on how to make money all the time. People are very materialistic. They're all the time talking nonsense. In fact, asat sanga tyag a Vaishnavata, the first symptom of a Vaishnava is giving up bad association. But most of our devotees are forced to live in such bad association. And so it becomes very difficult for them to make factual advancement. So the first thing then in Srila Prabhupada's Varnashram revolution is to live in Vaishnava communities. But Varnashram means a lot more than that. It means dividing society. In the communities that are going on under my direction, we haven't divided yet. We're trying to get the first stage in practice, first of all. That, first of all, let's live on the land and chant Hare Krishna, then we'll come. But that has to be done. Without doing that, we're not fulfilling Srila Prabhupada's mandate. We've had many hours of research and discussion. We're very much aware that we have to do this according to Srila Prabhupada's vision. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And even if it superficially works, like there may be many things that superficially look very good, but if it's not in accord with what Srila Prabhupada wanted, and if it's not according to Srila Prabhupada's direction, then yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nagati katopi. We may have a very good farm and people may come and praise it, and we may get some award or this or that from some kamis who give awards, but unless we please Srila Prabhupada, then it's not going to work. And nagati katopi. It may look very nice, but it has no actual meaning. So the first thing we have to see in understanding Daiva Varnashram, we should very carefully study all of Srila Prabhupada's directions on this. What What did Srila Prabhupada want? What was his vision? What was his direction? It wasn't simply self-sufficiency. It was a practical enactment of Krishna conscious principles. First thing, if we have to be convinced that this modern society is demoniac, it's hellish, it turns people into demons. We require to show a whole better way of life to the people of the world who have no idea. Nate vidu swartagating hi Vishnum. They have no idea that the goal of life is Vishnu, and that sense gratification, which is the whole center, especially sex attraction, is the whole center of materialistic society. Pungsastriya mituni bhavametam tayoraho hridya grantimahu ato griha kshetra sutabda vitara janasya moho yamahammameti. Srila Prabhupada translated this as saying that sex attraction is the basic principle of material existence. People have no idea of this. So Srila Prabhupada stated that the Varnasrama is meant to, the big plan is to minimize the sexual attraction. So this is a lot more than self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency, living on the, that's the beginning. But again, self-sufficiency doesn't mean we produce enough goods to sell that we can buy all the other things that we need. But it means that we produce what we need right where we are. Otherwise we get into commercial cash cropping. So first of all, we have to understand very clearly what was Srila Prabhupada's plan, and we have to understand that this modern so-called civilization is simply sapping the vitality of the human being. That nothing good can come from a society which is so badly going in the wrong direction. A major part of our preaching is to show a whole different way of life. It's not just that we can be Vaishnavas and we can be nice people and smile at each other within the present civilization. Being nice and being polite and being good within the present civilization is a kind of, it's misleading. Because materialistic people, their so-called kindness and niceness and politeness and so on, but that's all part of their idea. The best among the people in modern civilization think, let us all live peacefully together and love each other and go on with our sense gratification. They don't have it worked out in such a philosophical system, go on, but that is their aim of life. They don't know that the aim of life is to serve Krishna, and that making factories and all kinds of unwanted products, useless things which don't actually, they say we're improving the quality of life, but they don't actually improve the quality of life. They simply distract us more and more from the real goal of life. So our aim is to set up a new civilization. Why? A new style of civilization. Why? Because the present civilization is completely off course. That, unless we understand this, we'll have no impetus to make this alternative civilization. I say new civilization, but of course it's not really new. It is the natural way that people have lived for centuries all over the world, and particularly Daiva Varnasrama is that way of life which Krishna himself has established so that people can live with minimum disturbance in this highly disturbed world. They can live with minimum disturbance so that they can prosecute the real goal of life, which is to become Krishna conscious. So promoting Daiva Varnasrama, first of all we should understand what it is. It's not simply self-sufficiency, it's not simply Vaishnava communities. It's meant for a thorough overhauling of the whole social fabric. It's a very ambitious project. Srila Prabhupada said that 50% of my work is still to be done in establishing Varnasrama. So if we consider what Srila Prabhupada did, it seems almost impossible. But he did it. Because he had full faith in the holy name. He had full faith in the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He had full faith in the order of his own Guru Maharaj. And he didn't deviate an inch from it. So he was empowered to do this. So in establishing Varnashram Dharma, we shall have to stick very closely to Srila Prabhupada. And we shall have to become empowered. It's not, of course we'll have to discuss in so many ways how to implement it. But at the same time we should understand it's not by any materialistic, economic or socialistic formula that's going to happen. It's going to happen by our efforts that will attract the mercy of Krishna. It's going to have to be by Prabhupada's mercy and our very sincere intent to do this. It's not going to come by our own brilliance or material achievements. So first of all, we have to understand what Varnashram is, and we'll have to understand that by studying Srila Prabhupada's teachings in great depth. A major part of this is, or a prominent feature of it, is something which my lecture title was changed because it addressed that issue, but it is concerning gender roles. Modern feminism is not going to work in Varnashram society. Different people have different roles to play, and men and women have different roles to play. Everyone is to be a devotee of Krishna, but people have different roles to play. And the male role is different to the female role. There are different male roles to play, and the female role is to serve the husband, whether he's serving as a brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, or shudra. So that's one issue which I attempted to address in that one book, not in very great detail, just some overview. That it's going to be very difficult for many people to accept this, although it should not be very difficult to accept, to understand that, well, men should act like men and women should act like women. But in establishing Varnashram Dharma, we're going to have a very clear idea about this. We can't incorporate the ideas and the mindset of the materialistic demoniac society and somehow try and make some compromise between that and Krishna's system. It's just not going to work. We can't have Varnashram based on our own ideas. We have to study what is the culture that is there described in the Shastras, which has been lived to a large extent by people in India until recently. And we're going to have to, of course, all over the world, we can't expect people to be exactly like traditional Indians were, but that we can get much idea of the direction we should be going in by studying traditional India. Another thing is that in Varnashram society, traditionally there are many rules to be followed, which is part of civilized life. In civilized societies, there are many proper rules of conduct, as Srila Prabhupada states in his purport to the Bhagavad Gita verse, Pravriting cha nivriting cha. In human society, there are many rules to be followed, and they're given in Shastras like Manu Sanghita. Srila Prabhupada himself, he was with his own personal servants. He trained them very much in rules of cleanliness. He said in the Western world, people have no idea of cleanliness. To be a Brahmin, he said, he wanted to create a class of Brahmins to lead society. So nowadays we think that, well, Brahmin means they should have a Bhakti Shastri degree. But actually there's a lot more that one side of being a Brahmin is to have knowledge of Shastra. But on the other side, there are many rules of personal cleanliness, ritual cleanliness, many rules of conduct, of etiquette. This is all part of Vedic society, which devotees, they should learn this and start to live this. So there are many, many things to be understood. And if we're going to promote this, first we're going to have to promote it in our own ISKCON society and to promote it among the leaders of our society. Recently, His Holiness Shivaram Swami gave an address to the North American GBC that appears on the internet. And first of all, he had to educate them about Srila Prabhupada's instructions about Varnasrama, because shortly prior to that, the North American leaders at one of their meetings had come up with a resolution that we are going to drop Varnasrama because we don't know what it is and we'll just concentrate on preaching because that's what we know what to do. It was an open declaration that they were dropping Varnasrama, which means Guru Ravagya. They're disobeying the order of the spiritual master to institute that. So Shivaram Swami was educating them by giving them quote after quote after quote that Srila Prabhupada instructed the members of the Krishna conscious movement to institute this. So promoting Varnasrama, first we have to promote it among our own devotees, and especially among the leaders who seem to have forgotten that idea, or they don't like it, or they don't want to talk about it. We should talk about it because Srila Prabhupada talked about it. Yesterday in my talk, at the end of it, one devotee stood up and said, well, this is Vrindavan, this is the place of Radharani and Krishna Lila. And I said, yes, it's also the place where Srila Prabhupada talked that you're not the body and we should establish Varnashram Dharma. So you can talk about Radharani and Krishna Lila, that's very nice. But I want to understand Vrindavan through Srila Prabhupada and what he instructed us to do. So, you can talk all those things, very nice. And meanwhile, the people of the world are engaged in illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, meat eating, and all kinds of sinful activities, and have no idea how to live their life in such a way that they can achieve the perfection of life. They have no idea that there is any perfection of life beyond having sex like animals. And we need to educate them in this and give them a practical alternative that they can take up. So, yes, the aim of life is to relish the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. Meanwhile, the whole world is going to hell, and Varnashram Dharma is meant to show people how they can live. You don't have to be part of this society. We are not just saying chant Hare Krishna, but we're giving you a whole way of life by which you can chant Hare Krishna. We say to people, chant Hare Krishna, but in the meantime they have to work. Here in India, working 12 hours, 14 hours a day is normal. And then people are just completely collapsed. They hardly have time or energy. So we're offering a way of life in which you can chant Hare Krishna. It's not just theoretical. It's not just something you squeeze in on the way to work, or on Sunday you can maybe chant a few rounds without so much pressure of having to go to work. That every single day of your life you can chant Hare Krishna. You don't have to be a brahmachari or a sannyasi. Everyone should have this opportunity. So we should promote this, first of all, among our devotees. Promote it. Begins with talking, thinking, feeling, willing. These are different processes. And making actually such communities. Before these communities were started, we just in the last few years, devotees serving under my guidance started some communities. We always used to hear, no one will ever join such a community. No one will ever send their children to such a school. We have gurukuls also with forbidden Absolutely forbidden, government syllabus. Why? Well, there could be many reasons for that, but the simple, straightforward reason is because Srila Prabhupada said, we are not going to teach the government syllabus. So, that's it. As far as Prabhupada said no, okay, finish. No, that's it. We trust Srila Prabhupada. We follow him. So, but we're finding that people are coming. They are coming and joining, and people are sending their children. Because they see that actually these devotees have so-called good jobs in the city, but they're so much more happy now and Krishna conscious. And you are able to live like this. So there is great possibility. But we should clearly focus on on developing communities in the way that Srila Prabhupada did. In the way that Srila Prabhupada instructed us to do so. If we try to make some kind of compromise with modern life, it's not going to work. In our Krishna conscious communities, our devotees have gone there to live on the land, and they don't have electricity and don't have running water and all this kind of thing. It's a bit tough. You get used to it quickly. But the whole idea is so we can be Krishna conscious and people can come and see this is Krishna consciousness as it's practically lived. So there's no need, and it's a distraction to have things like yoga and alternative sources of energy. We don't, like I say, you don't need alternative sources of energy. You don't. What energy? What do you need? You don't need. We don't need electricity. Better don't have it at all. Live without it. Just live as Krishna did. Krishna didn't have electricity. He didn't watch cartoons on TV and didn't go to school. Child abuse. Not sending his children. Nanda Maharaj would be arrested nowadays for not sending his child to school. Just see. So, let's not try and make some kind of compromise between what Srila Prabhupada said and what we think and what we think the karmis will like. We should have enough faith that if we do what Srila Prabhupada told us to do, that will be a success. That will be a success because Krishna wants it. This is the system that Krishna gave. Srila Prabhupada had enough faith to go to America, and what did he do? He chanted Hare Krishna, he gave prasadam, and he gave the philosophy of Krishna consciousness full on, straight on. He didn't change it at all. For the Americans, when he first went to America, there were just a handful of people coming, and Prabhupada in one lecture spoke very strongly against illicit sex, and one person who was there said, Swamiji, I don't think the Americans will like this. And Prabhupada said, I didn't come to flatter the Americans, I came to speak the truth. So Prabhupada have faith that if we give the real thing, if we give Krishna as he is, as he presents himself in Bhagavad Gita as it is, that by Krishna's grace, those who are sincere, they will be attracted and they will take it up. Purity is the force. So similarly, if we have faith to live in the way that Krishna lived, as Prabhupada instructed us to live, that will be our success. That we don't have to and we shouldn't tweak it this way and that way and think, will the public like it or not like it? Let us stick to first of all, let us understand what Prabhupada wanted. Let us live according to that, and then that will be our actual success. So promoting Daiva Varnasrama. First of all, we have to understand what it is. We have to institute it, live like that, and the first thing we have to do is promote this in our society, because all kinds of things are going on. Taking the name of Prabhupada wanted farm communities, but how did he want them? We have to see how Prabhupada wanted it. We may have our own idea of just altering some basic things, but it may work superficially, but if it doesn't please Srila Prabhupada, then our life is wasted. And Gurukul, similarly, you find there are so many Gurukuls all over. I'm not talking about ISKCON, but just the word Gurukul is there, and basically they just teach the Kami curriculum so that the kids can go to school and get a good, so-called good job and become a slave of the modern corporate economic system. And here in Vrindavan also, the idea, send all the kids to school, wherever the school, they'll go to school, then they'll go to Delhi and get a job and forget Vrindavan life. So similarly, if we're going to keep the name Gurukul within ISKCON, we have to do the Gurukul as Prabhupada wanted, no government syllabus. The aim is to produce devotees of Krishna. Our curriculum is to make them Krishna conscious, not to make them slaves of the economic system by training them in all kinds of things, government syllabus with a little Krishna conscious added in. We have to remember also. So there's physics, chemistry, commerce. You have to remember to put 10 minutes chanting Hare Krishna also. No, the syllabus is Srila Prabhupada's books. That is the whole syllabus, curriculum, whatever you want to call it. That is Gurukul. Otherwise, it's Shanda Amarka. They're also gurus. But Prahlad didn't accept that. That's the Asurakul. So we have to be very, very careful. Let us first of all understand what Prabhupada wanted, and then do that, then everything will be a great success. Up to the present time, our movement has gradually shunted Varnashram out of sight, and it's to the great credit of the devotees here. They're trying to bring it back into focus, but actually it should come from the top of our society. The leaders should lead in this. So let us, like I say, we have to promote it first of all among our own society's leaders, and then we can go to the leaders of this, the political leaders and others, intellectuals, and say, look, this is a mess. Your whole society, whether it's socialism or capitalism or thisism, it doesn't work because it's based on a wrong concept of life. It's non-sustainable. The oil civilization is going to be finished. So, and even if you can keep it running on, what is the result of this oil-based civilization? It's pollution of the air, of the food, of the water, of people's minds. We need a whole new paradigm. This is the paradigm. That instead of inventing our own ways, let us live the way that nature provided for us. Live very simply. Simple living, high thinking. The highest thinking is Krishna conscious. We should present this to the leaders of society, the intellectuals, the thinkers. It's not a difficult thing to do. Our basic premise is that human society at the present time, Srila Prabhupada writes at the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, human society at the present time is, I'm paraphrasing of course, is not in the darkness of oblivion. Man has made more progress in science and so many things, but still there is a pinprick somewhere by which there is so much disturbance in human society. So Srimad Bhagavatam can fill that void. It can give Kalonashtadrisham Esha Puranako Dhanodita. Srimad Bhagavatam can give the light in the darkness of the modern age. How we can live in such a way that we can live relatively peacefully and happily in this basically miserable material world. We don't have to increase the misery. And how we can go to Krishna. Live happily by chanting Hare Krishna and go to Krishna. So it's a Varnashram Dharma communities. They are the practical manifestation of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. How we live in this world. How modern society is completely off course. We have to present an alternative. All right. Is there any question, please? Question, comment, objections? Oh, there. Yeah. Please, give the mic here. Vishayendriya samyogam yatadevkray mritopamam pariname vishamiva tatsukam rajasam smritam. In one verse of Bhagavad Gita describes the whole situation of modern society. That the happiness perceived by the interaction of the senses with the sense objects is seems like nectar in the beginning, but it transforms into poison. Such happiness is in the mode of passion. That's in one verse. Summarizes the whole modern civilization. That's Krishna. Gives everything clearly. Yes, please. Hare Krishna. My obeisances to you. The holder of everything. Das.
So, very, very, very nice summary of where we want to go, really where we want to go, and where we are, and but many times when we want to go, and where individuals are in the present condition, even if the idea is there to want to go there, they find themselves in a very, very precarious position, like Mataji's, who may be separated from their husband in the city. They would love to be in a baby environment and a motherly role, but it's just way over there, and how to help them and relate with them. To help them make a gradual, sensitive.
You're talking about individuals. How do they get into it? It's not so many individual devotees, I believe you're talking about, or just people, devotees or people in general. How do they get into it? It's not something it's not going to work by individuals. It's going to have to be a group effort, and they're going to have to be leaders, actual leaders who take charge and get things done and create communities. It's the people, those who suffer most are those who are most vulnerable, which means you mentioned women, there's children, cows, the elderly, yeah. So these are all, they're going to, in situations of exploitation, those who are weaker are going to suffer most. But they individually won't be able to do this. It requires those who have energy and power and vision to do this and to bring others together. Leader means there's no king without subjects. Someone can claim he's sitting in America saying, well, I'm a descendant of King someone and actually I should be the king of Austria, but it's meaningless. King means with subjects, so leadership has to be there. But one thing is, for Varnashram is coming up at the grassroots level within ISKCON, but actually it should come from the leadership. It's very difficult to get it together. We're experiencing, first of all, where to get so much money to land we're starting in India, it's easier to start here, in many ways. But land is very expensive to purchase. Most of the land, you can get good land cheaper in America than you can in India. Really, yeah. I just discovered that recently. Much cheaper, yeah. So to get the money together, and then we have to work practically against the status quo of ISKCON, where all people say, no, you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, don't spoil your life, blah, 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 blah. It's very, very difficult. It requires a lot of resolve and, yeah, that's why I thought it would be, I thought it was Bhaktivedanta leadership, but it's Bhaktivedanta something else. Learning, yeah, but maybe you should change the L to leadership. I mean, it requires devotees with vision and courage and faith in Prabhupada's words, and who can convince and just have to go out and do it. Just like with Srila Prabhupada, the whole Gauriya, he appealed with them, let's all come together and preach all over the world. He didn't do it, so he went and did it himself. So, that's what it, but for Varnashram, it's not we have a one-man Varnashram project. It's completely meaningless. So it requires groups of people. Yeah, we don't have a cordless mic, so you can kindly come up here. Ekaki amar nahi pai bol, Hari nama sankirtane, tumi kripa kari shraddha bindaya deho Krishna namadhane. Prabhupada, he exemplified that. He was on his own. He took strength from his guru to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. So we have to pray for strength, and of course Prabhupada didn't just pray for strength, he went out and did the job also. And whether there was no saying from the external point of view before Prabhupada went, there was no saying whether it would be successful or not. It looked like it wouldn't be successful. It looked impossible, but he did it by Krishna's mercy. We're going to definitely we're going to make mistakes. It's experimental. So, but someone has to do it. Yeah, so please, who's going to ask that? You're going to say something? Oh, just one thing. We do have some pilot projects, so you are invited to come. I think many of you may have come in the morning also. Is it? Nata Gauranga, you're here. Yeah. Not many. Yeah, we have one project which is going on, we can say, quite well. But we don't want to say too well, because, when you stand up and say, Joy, we're doing everything great, then Maya says, ha ha ha. So, as soon as we think we're doing well, that's the sign trouble's about to come. So, please show your beautiful Vaishnava face to all the devotees. You can contact him afterwards. Sometime, maybe about 2 years ago, I came to the project. I'd just been there just as they were moving to the land, and I came back after some months. I saw him and his wife when I came in. I said, "Oh, your face has become very dark and very bright." It means dark from the sun and bright with happiness. Yeah, so please contact Nata Gauranga if there's some project in Gujarat that he's overseeing. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your class. One of the really interesting comments that I heard you make today, you said that you're overseeing some communities or some farm projects, and you have not yet come to the point where you feel it's appropriate to divide those communities in terms of different varnas. And I was just wondering if you could explain what you thought was the necessary foundation or platform. What needs to be there?
What needs to be done before we can divide? Well, even to say that is difficult, because we've had discussions among the devotees, maybe going on maybe some thousands of hours by now. We didn't just go out buy some land and put some seeds. I say growing food, that's the easy part. Managing or living and cooperating with humans, even if they chant Hare Krishna, is the most difficult thing. So we know we have to go there, but we're not sure how to do that yet. There are many, many questions. For instance, even if we wanted to have kshatriyas, legally we can't do that. If we want to have kshatriyas according to the traditional role, legally we live in countries which have their rules and laws, and we're supposed to follow them. Brahmins, identifying who is Brahmin, then are they actually, what is their contribution? How are they supported? What is the role of this question? There are all kinds of things. Land ownership, is it group owned or is it owned by individuals? If we have Vaishyas and they take charge of grain production and ghee production, but then their spirit is to increase business more and more, and so then we turn from simple living to if we give the Vaishyas full reign, then their natural propensity is to increase the business more and more. We have discussed all these things, but quite frankly, we're still very much in the discussion stage. It's actually the farming part and living simply, that's the easy part. But it's not easy, but that's the easy part. And if Prabhupada said, I will show you. Prabhupada made everything seem easy. He came and chanted Hare Krishna. He said, what is the difficulty? We had so many difficulties. We're still having so many difficulties. Prabhupada said, what is the difficulty? Because it's natural to be Krishna conscious. And for Prabhupada it was completely natural. It was as if he took our hand and said, come along with me. It's easy. Krishna consciousness is easy. But we found it difficult because we have so many contaminations and misconceptions. So we're finding our way there, but we have faith that if we go on sincerely and with full faith in Srila Prabhupada's instructions and really try to understand what they are instead of trying to bend them to our own preconceived notions, that we will be able to make progress in this. But really to establish this, we're going to, at some point we're going to have cooperation from the secular rulers of society. Otherwise we won't be able to do it fully. Already there's a big roadblock coming up India has made this Right to Education Act, which means right to education means you have to be educated in schools approved by the government with their syllabus, which goes completely against what we want to do. So it's not such an easy task from our perspective. But by Krishna's grace it may unfold. Krishna may show the way forward for us. Krishna can do anything. So we're relying on Krishna's mercy, and at the same time we're trying to apply our God-given intelligence for all these matters. I'm supposed to finish at 5:30. Is there another session now? Okay. All right. Okay. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Staying close to Srila Prabhupada's vision, doing what Srila Prabhupada told us, understanding Srila Prabhupada's vision. These are very important take-home points.
These are essential, more than very important. Without it, everything is completely useless. Yeah.
So perhaps books are here. Those who would like to get copies of those books, perhaps will.
Well, specifically, this one is dedicated to those devotees who have followed Prabhupada's instructions to go and live on the land. That's the dedication. This one. So,
specifically one book, Glimpses of Krishna.